If you added up all the times you failed, all the times you came up short, would you try again? What if failure wasn't a limitation? What if taking risks was your status quo? What kind of world would you imagine? When global challenges seem overwhelming, we need to create unlikely partnerships, experiment with new thinking, and set audacious goals. To build a better world, to make a real difference, we have to take bigger risks, make bigger bets. And if we fail, and fail again, we have to get right back up, stronger than we were before. To live in a world worth living in, we have to let challenge inspire us. We have to take risks, be bold, and let urgency conquer fear. We have to be fearless.
Bravo. This is one of the really cool sessions at the Ideas Festival. You know, we have a lot of talks and a lot of panels, but we also try to do things that are a little bit different. And this is a chance for people to pitch a really good idea, pitch a good idea to judges that I would hate to face in my life, judges like Jerry Murdock and Melody Barnes, and actually Jackie Bezos is fine. She's the only nice one in the crowd. But it's sort of a new venture way of doing philanthropy. Jane Wales is here, sitting right there, runs our philanthropy program at the Aspen Institute. And we're always looking for new ways to reinvent the concept of philanthropy. I love what Jane is doing. I hope you get to know her and our philanthropy program, but I also love what Gene and Steve Case have done. The Case Foundation has always been not only a foundation, but almost like a think tank that really helps us think through things, helped us quite a bit when Gene and I worked together on the U.S.-Palestinian partnership that we hope to get refocused. But what they're doing now is something Kitty Boone and I and others kicked around, which was, let's find ways that people can show how new ideas work, how people sort them through, and allow some really cool people to pitch. I know some of the pitches coming up. I'm a big fan of Girls Who Code, so I know they're coming up, and I don't get a vote. I was not invited to be a judge. But let me introduce who's going to bring it all together, the person who has been a stalwart of the Case Foundation. As I say, Gene and Steve and I have been friends for years, except for those few years in which Steve was my boss at AOL Time Warner, and we had to suspend our friendship for a little while, but I was an admirer and a fan of his throughout that whole period. But they really do know entrepreneurship. They do know how to focus, how to get things in focus. And part of that has been because for years they've had Mike Smith working for them. So let me introduce Mike Smith of the Case Foundation.
Thank you, Walter. That has to be one of the biggest honors of my life, to be introduced so nicely by Walter. How's everybody doing? Okay, we can do better than that. Has anyone ever heard of an organization called City Year? Okay, so City Year, no matter where you go in the world, if you meet someone from City Year, you ask them, how are you feeling? And it's just in their DNA. They say, fired up. And they hate me because I'll see someone on the metro with a red jacket for City Year. And I'm like, how are you feeling? And they kind of roll their eyes, and they have to do it. So maybe we can try that. How's everybody feeling? Let's replace fired up with fearless. How's everybody feeling? All right, we are going to have a great time. This is the first time we are trying a pitch session at the Aspen Institute, at the Aspen Ideas Festival, as Walter said. So forgive us if there are a few hiccups. You'll learn a little bit about failing forward, but we're going to have a good time. We're going to have fun. We have some awesome judges who are going to judge some even awesomer, if I can make up that word, presentations from some Aspen scholars who are doing fearless work all around the world. What I want to do for you right now is just kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be doing for the rest of this session. So what we're going to do, Jean is going to come up, Jean Case, the CEO and co-founder of the Case Foundation, and she's going to come up and tell you a little bit more about what is this Be Fearless. It's not just a mantra, it's not a cliche, it is based on proven principles about people who change the world, which these Aspen scholars are doing. After we hear from Jean, we are going to actually bring up the judges. And let me introduce the judges. They're not going to come up right now, but it's an incredible, amazing group of people. So Gene and Steve Case are judges. Steve Case, co-founder of AOL and chair of the Case Foundation and CEO of Revolution, LLC. We have Melody Barnes, who was the past chief of the Domestic Policy Council at the White House. Wave your hand, Melody. And she's now CEO of Melody Barnes Solutions and working with the Aspen Institute to help lead the Community Solutions Initiative. We have Jackie Bezos, who I think Walter already said is the nicest one of the group. Jackie and her husband Mike co-founded the Bezos Family Foundation, and Jackie is the co-director. We have Jerry Murdock. Jerry, wave your hand there. Jerry Murdock is a co-founder and retired managing director of Insight Venture Partners. So, not to intimidate you, scholars, but this is a pretty impressive group of judges who have an ability to select winners. And so what do we have for the winners today? We figured we couldn't just come up here and let people talk and give them a gift bag. We're giving away Steve and Jean's money. So, the prizes. And I figure since I'm leaving anyway, I get this opportunity to give away more of their money right before I leave. So in first place, we are giving away $10,000. And second place, we're going to let you decide who gets $5,000. So we're going to play with text for voting at the end of this session, and you'll get to decide who gets $5,000. And then third, fourth, and fifth place, you know, these folks came here. We'll all get $2,500 for their causes. So we're going to have a great time. After each and every one of the scholars presents their ideas, and they only have 4 minutes. And look, we're going to be serious about that 4 minute. There is a big blaring timer right over here. It will make a loud noise, and then the hook and crook will come and take them off the stage because we only have a little bit of time. After each one of them gives their presentation, the judges will be sitting here in American Idol fashion and give these folks some tips and ask some questions. And Steve promised me that he will be the Simon Cowell of the group, so watch out. So after we hear from the scholars, that's when we will let the audience vote. The judges will deliberate then on who wins the top prize. Because we want to give them time to deliberate, we want to model good philanthropy, you know, give them some time to think about who the winners are. We will announce the winners at a later session today or tomorrow. So that is how things are going to work today, and we are looking forward to that. With that, to learn a little bit more about Be Fearless, I'm going to introduce Jean Case. And while Jean is coming up, we're going to start with a little video that gives you a little taste of what the principles of being fearless are all about.
You're fired up and feeling fearless. How many of you were with us at lunchtime? Was anyone with us? Okay, that gives us a good sense. What we thought might make sense for this part is for me to just run quickly through a little more context around those 5 principles that you just saw, because it is really through that lens that we're going to award these grants that Michael talked about earlier. And we're going to need your help in terms of what you think. So I wanted to make sure we kind of went a little deeper in what each one of these is. If you were at lunch, and if you weren't, let me tell you that these principles were derived out of really going to school on transformational breakthroughs in what we call the social sector. Big movements, big causes, big initiatives. And we ask the question, so what's behind those? Because they're kind of rare. We all try to do really big, important things in our work with nonprofits, but it turns out that a lot of times we wouldn't walk away and say, we really nailed that one. So there are these really great bright spots. We hired a firm to look at our work, look at the work of our partners, both current and looking back. And it was out of this that these 5 principles were sort of exposed. So they're not ours. We are definitely evangelists of them because we believe it's a secret sauce. It might be a model to find more success in changing the world. But when we saw them, we said, wow, that could really be encompassed under a lot of different themes. And that's how we came up with the term Be Fearless. So that is a little bit about the Be Fearless campaign, why we're standing here, the work we've been engaged in really now for about 1.5 years, both working with a lot of inspirational people around the country, our partners. I've spent a lot of time at universities. We've had the great pleasure of working with audiences like this today. So let's have at it. Michael, you want to put up our first?
They're bringing them up.
Okay, maybe not Michael, maybe somebody in the back. Well, why don't I get started? So the first principle is make big bets and make history. You saw that in the slide. And it's funny because at lunchtime there was a question at the end that said, make big bets, so you only invest in really big things. Well, the fact of the matter is, what we've seen is even big ideas start as small things. So I just want to clarify, we had a little discussion about this at lunch today. It doesn't mean it has to be big and transformational at the moment it arrives on the scene. It means it has to be the promise of a big idea. And you saw John Kennedy in our video. The moonshot, probably for many of us in this room, if you were around then, you remember it well. And the amazing thing is, if you drill down on the moonshot, it isn't actually that we went to the moon. That wasn't the most remarkable thing. The most remarkable thing is when that commitment, when that vision was drawn, we didn't have any of the piece parts to make that real. I mean, everything from material we needed to communications to technology. And what was beautiful was not only did we achieve the goal, and as the astronauts who were on that mission like to remind me, it wasn't that we sent them safely to the moon. It's that we return them safely to Earth. And we often forget that part as well. But the technologies live on, and we all benefit from them today in terms of the things that came out of that really big bet. The second principle was experiment early and often. Take risks. We talked a lot about this at lunch today. We do have a concern in the social sector and in our American society today. There's a little less willingness to take risks, particularly in philanthropy, in government, and in nonprofits. We're not talking about reckless risk. We're talking about risk that is necessary to find innovation. And if you look back, we have a long storied history of things that went forward because somebody stepped up and took a risk. And we think if we're going to find new models and break through in this world where we really need them, we're going to have to take risks. Very much tied to that is a belief that failure must matter, and we must learn to fail forward. And failing forward is kind of a funny term, and really what it means in a nutshell is get up, dust off, and in our sector, we try to tell failure stories together so we can learn from each other. In the things that we failed in, we look back and say, okay, what did we learn and how do we get smarter and go faster in the days ahead because of it? So we've hosted things like Fail Cons and Fail Fests and Liquid Failure Nights where we bring nonprofits together and maybe introduce some alcohol and we tell a little story about what has worked and what hasn't. Gets people to be a little more open. The next principle is reach beyond your bubble. We love this. It definitely has defined our work. Everything we do at the Case Foundation has to be cross-sector. So we have to have either the corporate sector as a player with us, startup with us, a public sector player. But it's the concept of reach beyond your bubble is there because in great transformations, people got around a table who normally weren't around the table today. So as you think about this in your work, and to the folks that are pitching today, think about what is the non-obvious, right? Who can you invite in, and how do you reach beyond your bubble in that way? And last but not least is let urgency conquer fear. And in many ways, I think we relate to this most of all. It's been our own experience both in business, in philanthropy, and in everything we've done, government, the immigration stuff Steve talked about today. When there is a sense of an urgent need, and Martin Luther King talked about the fierce urgency of now. It was urgency that let people put their lives on the line during the civil rights movement and ultimately resulted in what we see today. This idea of letting urgency conquer fear, especially tied with having partners, the combination of people working together and knowing that there is an urgent need can sometimes get you out of your comfort zone. So we're going to look for some of those things in the folks that we hear pitching to us today, and I hope we have a good time. Thank you. Oh, I'm supposed to.
We wanted to demonstrate to you what failing forward looked like. That's why we didn't have the slides ready. Jean didn't know that, so you got to see the slides didn't work, and she just went along with it. That is failing forward. She could have walked off the stage and not done the presentation. Thank you, Jean. We'll show you the very beautiful slides later. We'll send them to you. How about judges? Time to come up. Come on down. You're the next contestant.
And you need to be plugged in.
All right, how's everybody feeling? Oh, how's everybody feeling?
Fearless!
All right, are you ready to hear from your first fearless change maker?
Yeah!
All right, well, Zach Hendershot of High Def, come on up, Zach.
Woo!
Better be good.
Well, thanks for having me very much. I'm a little tall, so I'll have to adjust this. Oh, do results matter? Can you imagine a world where projects initiated by individuals, organizations, and governments are often pursued without defining, focusing, and delivering on results, actual results? I can, because we see it every single day. We need a method and a model to help humanity be results-driven in every single thing that we do. What seemingly overwhelming problem could be solved, and what audacious goal could be achieved if we had a methodology like this? When I heard about this pitch opportunity a week ago, our company High Def was embroiled in a discussion about innovation in the social sector and how we could actually affect it. We've been living and breathing success and failure in our day-to-day for 10 years. We've had successes impact millions and failures barely reach a dozen. We believe there's an opportunity to radically rethink how the social sector innovates. It's not something that you stumble upon, it's something that you build systems around. We think we've discovered both a method and model for results-driven innovation, for results thinking, really, born from our successes and failures over the past decade, that we think will radically transform the way things are done. We're talking about a toolkit and a methodology that will improve every innovation initiative, including the other 4 that you're going to hear today. I'm here to ask you to boldly partner with us to make a new method of innovation a reality. In our 10 years of designing, building, and iterating, we've learned quickly that innovation doesn't happen by accident. It happens by learning from your mistakes, fixing them, and going back out there and trying again. In our time working in the social sector, we've been struck by the desire of organizations to innovate, but they have too often been hamstrung by the lack of resources, systems, and know-how to actually do it. We want to fix this. We want to give tools to every social enterprise, organization, company, person to innovate. We believe that if we build systems and processes around how to remove fear and how to push past the idea into the market, we can make an impact. We can move the needle on innovation. If we make these tools open, accessible, and actionable, we'll reach people who need reach the most. We'll reach the people with the big ideas, but not the tools to actually make an impact. How do you build tools around innovation? We believe it has to be firmly founded in results. By results, we mean quantifiable, measurable impact. We mean that there isn't a document outlining what you think will happen. We mean that there are healthier babies, well-educated adults, and stronger communities to actually make an impact. We make it happen by fusing the idea with the technology, process, and partnership that helps us build and then measure the execution of the idea. The toolkit we're talking about will include step-by-step processes that take you from concept to prototyping to actual product delivery. There will be templates for brainstorming activities that help focus a team on the key results desired. We'll build reusable design and development components to kickstart prototyping sessions, and we'll build tools to include everybody in the prototyping process. The community that we build around this will give external connections to fresh ideas, stories of failure, and source of valuable resources. We believe that you can only drive towards results when you build for and deliver to the market. We'll provide a process and connection of partners across that critical chasm, from prototype to product delivery. On-the-ground feedback gives us the most direct and measurable tool to evaluate progress and impact. So we'll build a system of metrics to measure success and results. The opportunity through the CASE Foundation will allow us to create a truly reusable toolkit that can build a movement and impact millions. Our strategists, designers, and developers will not be able to make this happen alone. Rather than simply being an internal tool, we can build it into a shareable, usable, and supported tool on day one. We are betting big on this because we believe by the end of 2014, we can get 10,000 new projects focusing on impact, delivering results, and innovating at a pace never before seen. Thanks for your support.
Way to go. Way to go, Zach.
Way to go, Zach!
Way to go.
Who wants to kick off with the first question? You said we. Who's we?
We as HiDef, the organization that I started to really focus originally on sort of solving the world's big problems, but it really has transitioned into solving problems in the social sector after we got really embraced in some really incredible projects, allowed us to see that there are big problems here to solve.
So is this a business? Is this an open source project?
Yeah, this is a business.
How do you take it to scale?
This is a business, and we've been living and breathing sort of this software development life cycle for a long period of time. And we think that we're a for-profit business. And I think that's really important because our motivations have driven the organizations that we work with in a way that they're not generally used to. And in a lot of ways, we've been sort of coming to culmination at this point. Campaigns like Be Fearless and campaigns like, human-centered design and all these things are sort of, building a storm that I think we're at a critical point where if we build toolkits to get it from the idea through the design, through the iteration, and through the actual impact, I think that there's an opportunity here for us to actually scale that in a way that isn't dependent on us at all. It's about making that tool set available to millions of people, maybe.
So what's your business model, and how do you find your market?
Well, I think for us, it really comes down to making this available for people to make their own.
They buy it?
What's that?
They buy it from you?
No, absolutely. It's a completely open system that allows them to take the things that we've learned, that Organization A across the street who has done some incredible work in Kenya, wherever that is, to actually make an impact, contribute, and continue to grow this toolkit around innovation.
So how do you make money? Where do you make money in the process?
We don't make money. We make money by actually being the thought leaders around how this innovation occurs. So organizations could potentially come to us for sure, and we'll help them through that process. We can shepherd them through that, but it's not something that we want to own. It's not something that we should own.
So the software is free, and if they want consulting or something,
Exactly.
then you. Okay.
Exactly.
And how are you going to measure success?
I'm sorry.
How are you going to measure success?
Well, I think for us, we can actually look at really concrete metrics around how many people are employing this technology in the world. How many people are actually using these specific steps and tools and components that we build, and how many people are impacted? How many, babies are being affected? How many healthier babies are we seeing in the world? Whatever these things are, clean water in villages. If we can actually point to some metric of success around people using this process to innovate, that's how we measure it internally.
So you're building an evaluation tool in the software?
Yeah, I think a big part
of
of this toolkit that we're building is actually building metrics into how we measure this from the very core.
How will you distinguish yourself from, say, the human-centered design toolkit?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question because I actually work a lot with IDEO.org.
So our questions weren't good questions?
Yes, for once. I think the human-centered design approach is actually a major component. It could be a major component of this entire sort of end-to-end process. I think where we add value is taking that, capitalizing on that, and actually taking what we learned from that process and getting it into the hands of the people that it needs to actually impact. So I think our core value that we're adding is let's take that brilliant process, I completely believe in it, and let's take it those next 3, 4, whatever steps to get it out in people's hands.
Can you describe the customer that's going to use this exactly? What's their background? What are they doing?
I think we have to.
Last question.
10 seconds because the time's up here.
For me, I think it's organizations who work in the social sector, whether it's a foundation who wants to actually sort of, impose this process on the end-to-end, or if it's an organization, a development organization that builds this software, maybe that's a part of how they deliver this innovation process from point A to point B. I think it could apply across the board.
Thanks, Zach. Let's hear it for Zach one more time. Good questions, judges. I think he thinks you could do better next time, though. Let's now hear it from our next panelist, our next presenter, the fearless Louise Langhire from Peer Health Exchange.
Hey, Louise.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you all for giving us this opportunity. It's great to meet each other, not to mention get to meet all of you. I am Louise Davis Langhire, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Peer Health Exchange. And Peer Health Exchange was founded to address a growing crisis among teenagers. Teenagers today, as many of you may know, are engaging in risky behavior at alarming rates, harming their bodies and their futures. And as just one example of this, 3 in 10 sexually active teen girls gets pregnant every year, increasing their risk by 70% that they'll drop out of school, give birth to an unhealthy child, and live in poverty for the rest of their life and their kids' life. So there are many other examples like this, but that one's pretty compelling. To make matters worse, schools have actually had to cut comprehensive health courses, leaving teens unprepared to protect themselves against these health risks. So as just one data point on that, there's only 1 health educator for every 5 high schools in the US. I first learned about this problem when I was 18 years old and had been working my whole life growing up in San Francisco on HIV and AIDS. I knew deeply that HIV was a major issue in this country and abroad, but when I got to college in New Haven, Connecticut, I met Tom Shagru, a New Haven public high school teacher who had a bunch of Yale kids volunteering in his school, tutoring and mentoring. He pulled us aside and said, "Not so sure that you're good at tutoring or mentoring, to be honest, but I do think you could address a real issue in our school. We lost our funding for health education, and my kids are getting pregnant, they're doing drugs, they're in abusive relationships, and they lack basic information and skills to make good decisions about these issues. You guys are slightly older than them. If you get your act together and get a diverse group of kids in here, they might really listen to you, especially because I'm 60 and they're never going to listen to me." So you can imagine as an 18-year-old, this was a pretty compelling call to action, especially around an issue that I cared deeply about personally. And we went in and started teaching in his classroom, doing exactly what he asked us to do, and saw really great initial feedback from our teens. We were teaching them about a range of topics, and we got lots of stories of teens actually using what they learned to make healthy decisions, which was very motivating to us to go back and recruit more college students, and also motivating to the school district to keep growing our program from the 6 of us who founded it in 1999 to eventually serve more than just this one teacher, Tom Shagru's classroom, and serve teens across the city of New Haven. So since then, in 2003, we founded Peer Health Exchange, basically to take the model we'd seen begin to work in New Haven and apply it to this broader problem we had learned was not at all unique to New Haven, but actually a nationwide crisis. And we started to work to professionally develop what we had done as college students and make it happen in other communities. We've, over the last now 9 years, grown quite a bit to reach a total of 76,000 teenagers in 6 cities. We've trained about 6,300 college student volunteers. And most importantly, we've started to see promising initial results. So last year, 64% of our 9th graders said that they had already used something that they learned from Peer Health Exchange to make a healthy decision in the 9th grade and could cite what it was. And for some, it's deciding not to have sex with someone they don't want to have sex with and knowing how to say no. Or for others, it's deciding to use a condom if they do. Still others, it's deciding not to abuse a drug. Others, it's getting help for a mental health issue for a friend. This is all what we're trying to do to empower them to make their own healthy decisions. So while this progress has been great and the growth has been exciting, we stepped back about a year ago and said, although we've really seen initial impact, we're pretty sure we're leaving impact on the table too. Some classrooms we'd go into, there would be 2 great college students teaching so effectively that you knew teens were learning. In other classrooms, you'd say, this is better than nothing, but I'm not sure it's the best it could be. So we're on a path today pursuing our next phase of impact, deepening impact on every teen we serve, evaluating it more robustly, both evaluating behavior and evaluating through technology what's happening over the course of the program.
Thank you, Louise. Time's up.
Yep. All right.
So judges, because we got started a little late, we're cutting your time back to 2 minutes for questions. Let's hear it for Louise.
All right.
So, here's a question. So Louise, in some quarters, this work is highly controversial. How are you going to deal with that issue and at the same time go to the scale that you want to?
Yeah, so we, in being a comprehensive health education organization, have been able to, I think, straddle two really important sectors, health and education, and not get pigeonholed as the most controversial piece of this, which in many ways our partners, we work closely with other healthcare providers and health services are in a different position. If they're only serving the sexual health needs of teens, like Planned Parenthood, we partner closely with Planned Parenthood, but we're not them. And when we go to schools, we're just an education program working during the school day. So we really haven't found, as we've scaled, that that's been a significant challenge. We're not naive to think it won't be, and we'll continue to brand ourselves in a comprehensive way, since many of the issues we address are not controversial to most people.
What would scale look like?
So there are about 1 million ninth graders that would be in need of this program, and we're serving 20,000 of them a year right now. For us right now, we're focused on ensuring that as we grow, and we are growing, we're working primarily to deepen impact through these pilots that will test ways we can do it. And so ultimately, as we figure out which of the pilots work, and therefore what the impact model should look like, we'll continue to scale, but have more options based on the data and results as to what works. And we can scale quite a bit, actually. It's not our limiting factor. There are hundreds and thousands of college students that want to do this work, so we just have to make sure we hold a high bar on what impact looks like so we can keep scaling with impact.
What is the limiting factor?
Primarily at this point, it's making sure that we get the best college students. So there isn't a limiting factor on number, but as I said, I used to think that we could take Joe Schmo college student and make them a great health educator. That's not true. And we've learned that actually having the best people, not surprisingly, is a great piece of our impact. So I think it's actually figuring out how to get more college students up the curve more quickly to be great health educators.
What are you most happy about in terms of giving you hope for the future?
Last question. Okay, great. I'm most happy about the fact that we've actually affected teens' healthy decisions and that they have not engaged in risky behavior or reduced the risk significantly on pregnancy, substance abuse, mental health because of PHE. I think we have a long way to go to make that happen at scale, but I'm thrilled that I've seen it in some examples.
That's great.
Great.
Good job, Louise. Thank you.
Our next presenter is from the government, and she's here to help us all. Let's hear it for Kim McClure from the United States Department of State.
All right.
Thank you. My name is Kim McClure, and I've worked as a professional in foreign policy for about 10 years. My fearless idea is to create an app and website that use social media and hip-hop music to engage American youth in a cross-continental dialogue on global issues. Why is this important? Because most Americans are woefully unaware of the world around them, and things are not improving for the next generation. A recent study by World Savvy indicated that only between 22 and 28% of American youth can identify basic global facts, such as which is the most widely spoken language in the world, which country is the United States' largest trading partner, and in what region of the world is Afghanistan located. These are the same youth who will have to compete in an increasingly global job market, which overall is a good thing, but only if we are preparing them to do so. Here's why this matters. A recent study of the resumes of Fortune 100 CEOs revealed that the most common denominator in their work history was having worked overseas. 3/4 of them had managed operations abroad. And companies such as Coca-Cola, Walmart, ExxonMobil, and GE now report that between 40 and 80% of their revenue actually comes from outside of the US. Contrast this with the fact that only 20% of Americans even own a passport. I believe that these facts have huge ramifications for the future of American security and American global competitiveness. In order for our companies to thrive and for our diplomats to prevent wars, Americans have got to develop more global skills. And this is an area where I feel that we, as a country, must now begin to fail forward. Now, in thinking about how to get American youth engaged and interested in global issues, I had to start by thinking about what youth care about already. The two things that immediately came to mind were social media and music, hip-hop music in particular. For the skeptics out there, allow me to point out that worldwide, an estimated 24 million people under the age of 34 are listening to hip-hop music today. Though originating in America's urban communities, even in the US now, 70% of hip-hop sales are said to come from white youth in suburban communities. Thus, hip-hop has demonstrated its ability to be a bridge between lines of class and geography around the world. I note that even the most watched YouTube video in the history of YouTube is a Korean hip-hop video called Gangnam Style that was the first in history to gain over 1 billion views. So moving back to the solution, the app and website that I propose to launch will feature 15-minute youth-produced news segments in which youth explain various global issues to their peers. This content will be created by the nonprofit Global Kids and its partners in the tech and education fields. Each video segment will end with a 5-minute rap that summarizes the issue. Youth from around the world can watch these videos and then respond by posting their own 5-minute rap about how that same issue, whether education or global climate change, actually impacts people in their own country. Youth who post consistently and with insightful content that moves their peers will be ranked and will show up highest on the page. The results? This app engages American youth in a cross-continental dialogue on global issues. It makes faraway problems resonate at home and gives youth a voice in the global policy debate. It uses existing media with demonstrated popularity among youth that are also proven to cross lines of geography and class in order to make these issues equally relevant for underserved or more privileged youth, whether they are in Bangkok, Bujumbura, or Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you.
All right, Kim.
17 seconds to spare. Well done. Judges.
How will this give youth a global voice beyond dialoguing with one another?
I think that it will work in part. I think that one of the issues in terms of why global youth don't care about why youth don't care about what's going on around the world is that they don't understand how it impacts them. So I think the ability to engage with other youth their age to talk about a macro issue and then hear the voices of other people around the world their age saying how it also impacts their communities, whether it's food deserts or not being able to have access to healthcare or watching their mom suffer from that, will give a level of local resonance that doesn't currently exist. I think it will then inspire them to look for opportunities to learn foreign languages, to study abroad, that in those types of opportunities that give them those hard global competency skills.
What funding mechanisms will you use? Will you strictly rely on grants, or is there a revenue opportunity as well?
I think that there could possibly be a revenue opportunity if you look at sort of the ability for advertisements on the website or with the app content. I think particularly industries such as travel or study abroad companies would have an interest in being a part of a venture like this.
In addition to video channels through YouTube, have you thought about other channels relevant to the hip hop community, such as Rap Genius?
Yeah, and I think those would be great to leverage as well. The idea would be to create an app that is inherently has the ability to be integrated with multiple existing social media platforms, and to hopefully be able to use some of the star power of some leaders in the hip hop industry to help sort of get it launched and help urban youth in particular understand how it's relevant.
Do you see the opportunity to move and use this model beyond hip hop, one, and two, what about foreign language adaptability? So the raps in response, are there ways to allow kids who are speaking different languages to talk to one another?
Yeah, I think over time that we would be able to integrate the ability to translate raps. And then, of course, there's just the fact that music often doesn't need translation, and it carries, and certainly the visual component with the videos carries a message in and of itself.
Great.
Great.
Good job.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. I have to say, one, I love Kim's headshot. It makes me want to redo mine. So thanks for that inspiration.
Particularly for the State Department. That's
Exactly. The other surprising thing was that Jerry Murdock, Jerry has invested in some of the hottest social media companies, but he's the one that knew about Rap Genius. Where you get cool points for that one. All right, let's hear it for our next pitcher, Randall McShepard from RPM International. Randall.
Okay, Randall.
So how do you address food deserts and poor eating habits in urban America? The answer, 3 childhood friends, 1.3 acres, and a big idea: to create an urban farming and environmental education campus unlike anything ever seen in America. Let me tell you a quick story about a place called the Forgotten Triangle, which is a neighborhood in the city of Cleveland that is called that because it is the most notorious illegal dumping zone and has been for the last 30 years. I'm not just talking burned out cars, tires, and refrigerators, but dead bodies. So you can imagine the shock and dismay on the part of the city administration when me and 2 childhood friends told them that we were going to go into that neighborhood and create an urban farm. They told us we were crazy. They told us it would never work. They told us it would be a waste of time, it would be vandalized. Well, ladies and gentlemen, being the fearless men that we are, we went into that community, and I'm proud to report to you today that 2.5 years later, we have a very successful, thriving urban farm with 2 greenhouses, 4 hoop houses, 2 ponds, an edible walking trail, a compost station that is processing 60,000 pounds of organic food waste per week, and did I fail to mention the fact that we have successfully farm-raised 3,500 tilapia fish, all while we've created 4 jobs for neighborhood residents. So people told us it couldn't work, but we showed them that it could work. We didn't rest there because people said it was the Forgotten Triangle, but we did have 2,000 visitors last year, as well as 500 volunteers come to the site. So it is forgotten no more. But we realized that if we were trying to reach urban youth and get them to eat differently and look at their diet differently, that we couldn't just give them lectures and expect that would change anything. We had to do something big, bold, out of the box. We came up with an idea to create an urban comic book that we call Brink City Green in the Ghetto. The superheroes in this comic book are everyday citizens that fight the woes in their respective neighborhoods. The woes are things like soil contamination, litter and recycling, and healthy eating. We are proud to report that we've issued 5 editions of that comic book, and it's reached over 12,000 people in Cleveland neighborhoods. So I could tell you a whole lot more about what we've done and some of the failures that we've had, but time won't allow. I do want to tell you what comes next for us. I'm proud to report that we have just seized 2 additional acres directly across the street from our urban farm site, and we want to build the first ever, what we refer to as 21st century greenhouse. This greenhouse will be replete with classroom space. We've talked to the Cleveland Municipal School District about having every 4th grader come to that farm site as a part of their science education program. We will have a community kitchen in this facility that will not only teach urban dwellers how to cook fresh food, but we would also launch a green or vegetarian catering business out of that kitchen. We would also have a farmer's market where residents from the neighborhood can actually come and purchase fresh food, which of course we know urban dwellers need to do. And we would also, in addition, have additional farming operations and office space and so forth. We, at the end of the day, started this whole effort because if we want to address issues in urban America like diabetes, like hypertension, cancer, and so on, we have to do something dramatically different. We have to crack the code. We have to remember one of my favorite quotes, that culture eats strategy for lunch every day. There's lots of strategies that have been out there trying to address urban communities around eating healthy and living the right way, but we need a game changer. And that's exactly what this facility will allow us to do and to be. We will change the way kids think about food, the way they prepare food, the way they eat, and the way they feel about themselves. So we're very excited, and we really would appreciate your support. Thank you all very much.
Great, Randall.
Have you heard of Aspen Center for Environmental Studies?
Only browsing it.
You should be partnering with them. They're right at that table.
Yeah.
Tilly
Okay.
Walton,
Partnership.
Jeff Burkus, Gina.
My
These
new
guys
best
have a
friends.
bunch of teachers for you right here in town. They've got their own sustainable farm down valley, and I'm sure they'd love to send some teachers to Denver and other urban cities to help you out.
Oh, wonderful. Thank
Talk
you.
them right there. If you want partnerships, you want some partnerships?
I need partnerships.
There you go. There, right there. Wait, raise your hand, Tilly Walton. There you go.
I will find you.
So, Randall, a quick question. Is this a nonprofit or a for-profit?
It is a nonprofit organization at this time. We believe in a matter of 1 to 2 years that we will be able to spin off for-profit operations. One such example would be that we're talking, because we're picking up so much organic food waste, we have an organization that does anaerobic digestion, which is converting waste to fuel and electricity, interested in partnering with us. We actually have a memorandum of understanding signed with them. If that kind of an activity can take off, we can really see ourselves moving into a for-profit opportunity.
What are you growing?
Oh, geez. In addition to the tilapia fish, you know, one of the failures, we started out trying to grow everything, and we realized that some people will buy some of what you have and other people won't. So right now we're growing a lot of kale because we have 2 restaurants that bought the greenhouses and said, we'll buy all the kale you can grow. Lots of tomatoes, mixed greens, watercress, sunflower sprouts, wheatgrass, cucumbers, etc.
Where do you go from here? Does it expand in where you are, or do you think you could take this to other cities, or have you had discussions about that?
I am confident, Mr. Case, that this can become a national model. And I've talked to several people that deal with the vacant housing crisis that we see in cities like Cleveland and Detroit and other places. Something has to be done constructive with vacant property. And if we just wait and wait, I don't think anything's going to change. So we believe that by empowering communities, by training communities and creating jobs, we're going to help make those communities more successful. And of course, at the end of the day, people will eat much more healthy.
How are you building a brand?
Wow, we have an unbelievable brand, believe it or not, through these comic books. We have a whole merchandising line. We have Green in the Ghetto sweatshirts. We've gotten 3 front page stories in local media. I mean, 2,000 people coming to the Forgotten Triangle. I mean,
Richard Branson says your brand isn't what you think it is. It's what your customers think it is.
Sure.
So how are you doing that?
Well, I think our customers like the fact that it's an urban farm with sort of a hip-hop flair. It's a hip place to be, but we're always hammering home the importance of eating healthy and really making it, that's why we did the comic books. We wanted it to be cool to eat healthy, to have a bit of a swag as it relates to urban farming and education.
Randall, did you bring samples?
Yeah, exactly.
I did.
Green in the Ghetto.
My suitcase is in the.
To bribe us?
Let's hear it for Randall. Great job.
All right, Randall.
Edible walking trails.
Our final presenter, and then we go to text to vote to all of you, is Kristen Titus from Girls Who Code.
Hi, I want to talk today about what I like to call the most urgent domestic issue of my generation. That's a bold statement. It's computer science education. And before I get in, I just want to look at the landscape really quickly. On one hand, we have reached record levels of unemployment for youth, twice the national average for adults. On the other, we have a vibrant tech industry where innovation happens that is struggling to fill millions of jobs. In fact, in the United States, in the next 5 years, we'll have 1.5 million jobs in this sector, and we are only expected to fill 29% of them. This, by the way, is why the tech industry is rallying around immigration reform. But when you look at the data and you walk into any of these companies, there's nothing more glaringly apparent than the fact that women are not there. Women are not represented. In fact, if this was a room of engineers, maybe one table would be filled with women. 30 years ago, when I was born, 37% of CS majors were women. Today, that number is closer to 8%. What's worse, in high schools, 0.3% of high school girls express interest in studying computer science. So why is this? Why could that possibly happen? 1, a lack of exposure, and 2, lack of education. Today in the United States, less than 10 states accept computer science credit toward graduation. What's more, the number of schools offering CS courses has dropped dramatically in recent years. We're now looking at only 27% of schools offering computer science courses. You compare that to a recent survey of Google employees, 98% of Google engineers report that they had some computer science education prior to college. Take that and look at that 0.3%, and I think it's fair to say that Google's going to have a very hard time hiring women in the next 10 years. That's a problem. Imagine all the innovation, everything that we watched on this video that we're missing out on when we don't have 50% of the population at the table. So we started there. Girls Who Code over the last year and a half has mobilized everyone from the White House to Google to Twitter to universities to come up with a solution. We together have built something that's scalable and sustainable. They, as companies, knew they couldn't do this themselves. This was education at a much lower level. We said, okay, we'll take it on, we'll take risks, we'll try big things, but we need your support. We need your intellectual capital, and we need your financial capital. Girls Who Code is running 3 parallel programs. Our flagship program is one in which we build out a classroom inside tech companies. Just this Monday, 20 15-year-old girls arrived on their first day at Twitter at 9 a.m. They will go to Twitter 8 weeks, 8 hours a day this entire summer. They will learn robotics, web design, mobile development. They're meeting with the CEO tomorrow. 100% of the girls that have gone through this program indicate that they are definitely or more likely to major in computer science. That's compared to 0.3%. In parallel, we're running clubs. This is a program that we've packaged for replication at scale inside schools, community organizations, churches. We also piloted a program called Teachers Who Code. We can't do this without bringing teachers on board. There are less than 1,500 computer science teachers in the United States. I don't want to end today without mentioning this one staggering statistic that always makes my jaw drop. We talk about STEM funding all the time: science, technology, engineering, and math.
Sorry, Kristen.
No, it's my one.
Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Kristen.
All right, thank you.
I'm
So
sorry.
my question is, what were you about to say?
But what? That's good.
Thank
Before
you.
you go, we have to let Melody go. She's presenting in 10
All right.
minutes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
The White House, the most recent White House report showed that of all STEM funding, for every dollar that goes to STEM funding, less than a penny goes to anything related to technology or computer science. Less than a penny. And this is, of STEM jobs, 71% are going to be in this industry.
Online? The classroom idea, like getting in place of Twitter or other places, seems awesome, but how do you scale it to reach more people, including people who don't happen to be in San Francisco or other things? Have you looked at, obviously a number of companies are doing online coding things. Are you partnering with any of them? Is that something you could be doing?
Absolutely. We believe that there is a lot of valuable software out there to do this online, but we leverage that. And we have to pair that with mentorship, with instruction. It doesn't work with this cohort without it. And those companies are struggling and finding the exact same thing. So our model is one in which we leverage what's already out there. We don't replicate anything, and we ensure that these women have the support to move forward.
Kristen, how do you identify them to know that they're great to go through the program? And then can you just give us a thought on scale? What have you trained so far, and how do you see this going forward?
So if 0.3% of girls are even interested in computer science, the first step of our challenge is to get them interested. It's a huge part of our outreach and recruitment process. We go to schools, community-based organizations, community leaders. We're proud to report that 88% of our participants are minorities. 50% are on free or reduced lunch. We're seeing huge waves of women come out of the woodwork and say, if only I knew this was a possibility, I would have done it.
Do you think you get to scale faster by partnering with different organizations and doing things like, for example, in the state of New Mexico, there's something called GUTS, Growing Up Thinking Scientifically. Have you heard of it from Santa Fe Institute?
Yes, absolutely.
Would they be an organization for you to work with?
So we've talked with everyone from the Girl Scouts to Girls Inc. to these big entities and institutions that are dying for this curriculum. They want this curriculum. Our goal with our clubs model is to package that and put it in their hands.
So you want the GUTS curriculum?
Yes.
That's great.
So science tells us that children, girls, self-select or self-stereotype by the 3rd grade, and they see themselves as not doing math, not doing science. Do we need to move further down the chain to a younger age and begin introducing them to science, maybe not to coding, but to science, so that you get more receptive bodies into your program?
Sure. When we looked at the trajectory of the problem, we really looked at where we could be most impactful in our intervention. And it was at 15 or 16 that we could come in, stage an intervention, ensure they're moving into the one infrastructure that exists in the space, CS in college, and then place them in internships. All of our girls are working at these companies in the next year, and they have the maturity level to do that. In a perfect world, we would hit all ends of the spectrum, but this is where we're starting.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for Kristen and the judges.
Thank you.
All right, judges, you may leave the stage and go down to begin your deliberations to pick number
Is there
one.
like a cone of silence somewhere we need it?
And then audience, let's one more time hear it for all of our panelists, all of our pitchers, and I'd like them all to come up on stage. That means you. All right, everybody, it is now time to have fun with texting. Take out your phones, your PDAs, your Androids, iPhones, etc. Open up a text message. Everyone knows what that is. Gonna open up a text message. Have a seat, have a seat.
Oh.
All right. Let's put 2 minutes on the clock for everyone to get this done, and then it'll take a few seconds to tally. So, everyone, dial into the number 77948. So in the number screen, you want to put 77948. And if you want to vote for Zach, stand up. You want to text in the text space, text ideas.zach. So you have to text ideas.zach. All right, Zach, have a seat. If you want to vote for Louise, stand up. Text ideas.louise. Ideas.louise. Thanks, Louise. If you want to vote for Kim, text ideas.kim. Ideas.kim. If you want to vote for Randall, what do? Text ideas. Good job. Ideas.Randall. And if you want to vote for Kristen, text ideas.Kristen. Ideas. All right, any questions? Is anyone confused or need a helping hand? Yes, you in the back. Say that again. Vote once, please. Please just vote once. Any other questions? All right, we're going to give people 2 minutes to do that. While you have your 2 minutes to do that, any questions for our panelists? Just stand up. The question was, what has Randall looked for in soil toxicity?
Excellent question. One of the real challenges with urban farming, we did have the soil tested, and as we suspected, it was contaminated, arsenic, lead, lots of other things, which is why we put so much time and energy into making our own compost. So we do all above ground beds for our soil, and we've had it tested. It's off the charts in terms of nutrients because it's all fresh produce that was broken down into compost soil. So that has now also become a cash generator for us because we're selling cubic yards of compost to other farmers and gardeners around the city and the region.
30 more seconds to vote, and then we will tally. Any other questions for our panelists? Oh, is someone in the back? Are you queuing the results? Oh.
My question is if Randall's organization is also involved with 4-H and Extension. I think both those organizations would be very interested in what you're doing.
We are involved with Ohio State Extensions in Ohio, but we're actually formally affiliated with Will Allen and Growing Power out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, if you know his operation as well.
One final question, but I do have the results texted to me from the back. Yes, you.
She asked if Girls Who Code is involved with Games for Change, and absolutely. We've been working with them and know them very well. I think if anything, our girls are going to build and have built things that they'll like to adopt, but they're really great. Absolutely, and this is something that we've learned the hard way, that getting buy-in from parents and their motivation of their young women to go in this sector, most of the parents have no idea what computer science means or can enable for their young women. So this is a huge part of our program, engaging them, getting their buy-in, and supporting the young women along the way.
Thank you. Let's hear it one more time for all of our panelists. And Steve and Jean, can we have you come up to close us out? You don't have to have the winner ready yet, but Steve and Jean are going to come close us out. While they are quickly walking to the stage or standing up, you know what I want to do? There's someone who's worked really hard on this session who you haven't heard from for weeks, my colleague Sarah Koch. So I'm going to have you, Sarah, come up and read the winner. Sarah, come on up. And the winner for $5,000, voted by the crowd.
All right, it is Randall. Congratulations. Thank you.
All of you are obviously winners, and thank you so much for the tremendous, fearless work you're doing in communities around the world. Steve and Jean, you want to take us home?
Can you remind them what Randall just won?
$5,000.
He just won $5,000.
Can we just, we can announce the winner.
All right. You want to end?
Well, first of all, did everybody have a good time? I feel really inspired by these remarkable young people. I hope you guys do too.
Yeah, and then as Michael said, yeah, everybody's really a winner, and it was great to hear all these different stories. And the question was, how do you pick from this group, all who are passionate about their ideas, and pick the one that was hard? And we had a little bit of a debate. It was not an easy call, but the winner of the grand prize of the Be Fearless Challenge and $10,000 is
Kristen. Woo! Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Steve, do you have the money in your pocket?
The really big check. So I think we just wanted to have this session not only to be inspired, but also I know every time I'm around young folks and hear how they're thinking about things in such a creative way, it inspires me too. So we hope you guys have the opportunity to encourage those people you're backing to be a little more fearless after listening to this today. And we came up with something kind of
Hold
fun.
on, and if you really like these stories,
You can
you
invest
can go
in
talk
them.
to them and support them on
That's
the way
right.
out.
That's exactly right. It
crowd-
doesn't stop here.
crowdfund them.
And last but not least, as you leave, we have some Be Fearless cards just to remind you some of the things we talked about. It's a playing deck, and it's a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming.